They say when something precious breaks, you hear the crack. But sometimes, it's silent. Sometimes, you just feel it. It started with the little things. The kinds of things you convince yourself are nothing, because the alternative is too unbearable to consider. Rachel, my wife of 11 years, had always been predictable in the best ways. Same lavender perfume. Same quick smile when she picked up my coffee order just right. Same dorky humming when she folded laundry. And then one day, she wasn't. It was a Wednesday. I remember because I was home early, nursing a bruised rib from a pickup basketball game with some buddies. I heard her laugh at something on her phone, a laugh that was light, a little breathy, unfamiliar. I poked my head into the kitchen. She fumbled to lock her screen faster than I could blink. "Everything okay?" I asked, forcing a smile. She smiled back, too quick, too bright. "Just a funny video from Mindy," she said, mentioning her best friend. It was nothing, I told myself. But after that night, my mind became a dangerous place. Every change felt bigger. She started working late more often. The phone that used to sit idly on the coffee table was now glued to her hand. New passwords. New habits. New perfume, sharper, bolder than the soft lavender I used to bury my face in. One evening, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed. I didn't look. I swear I didn't. But the way she sprinted out of the bathroom, water dripping, just to grab it, it was like a dagger twisting in my gut. "Who was it?" I asked casually. She wiped water from her eyes. "Just work." The words were smooth, practiced. But there was a flicker behind them. A hesitation. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But belief felt like standing in the middle of a frozen lake, hearing the cracks form under your boots, praying the ice would hold. At night, when she thought I was asleep, I'd watch her from under heavy lids. Thumb tapping, swiping across the phone screen, an almost secretive little smile curling her lips. I wasn't sleeping much anymore. Or eating much. Or thinking straight at all. I ran every excuse through my head. Maybe she's just stressed. Maybe she's planning a surprise. Maybe it's me. One night, lying next to her in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan spinning overhead, I whispered, "Do you still love me, Ratch?" She was quiet for so long, I thought she hadn't heard me. But then she shifted, pressing her back against me, her voice small. "Of course I do." It should have comforted me. It didn't. Because it sounded like someone answering a question on an exam they hadn't studied for. The final straw came 2 weeks later. I was picking up takeout from our favorite Thai place. Rachel was supposed to meet me after finishing some late work. While I waited, I mindlessly scrolled through social media, and there it was. A check-in. Not from her account. From his. A coworker I barely knew. Tagging Rachel at a local bar. Laughing. Leaning close. Too close. My hand tightened around the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. I could taste blood where I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from losing it right there in the restaurant. I walked out without the food. Without a word. Without a plan. Just a heavy, choking certainty growing in my chest. Rachel was hiding something. And for the first time in my life, I realized. I was going to have to stop being the man who loved her, and start being the man who found out the truth. No matter what it cost. Following Rachel that first time felt like crossing a line I never thought I would. But the truth was, I was already living in a lie. If my marriage was a house, the foundation had cracked. I was just the last one to realize it. The next day, I sat in my truck across from her office building, feeling like a teenager in a bad spy movie. My palms were sweating against the leather steering wheel, heart hammering so loud I was sure someone would hear it. I hated myself for this. But not as much as I hated the unknown. Around 5:45 p.m., she came out. Wearing that dress. The one I used to love, the soft blue one with the way it clung to her waist, the one she wore on our 3rd anniversary. Only now it felt like she was wearing it for someone else. I sank lower in the seat as she walked briskly across the parking lot. Not to her car. Not home. She climbed into a black BMW waiting across the street. Passenger seat. Smiling. A man got out, jogged around, opened her door. Tall. Athletic build. Business casual, no tie, cocky grin. I knew that grin even from this distance. Bryce. Another coworker I'd met once at a Christmas party. The guy who slapped my back too hard and made a bad joke about corporate retreats. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I might throw up. I didn't follow immediately. Training from my time in the military kicked in, patience, distance, blend into the environment. They drove to a place about 10 minutes away, a hotel just off the interstate, hidden by trees. No valet. No security cameras visible outside. They knew what they were doing. I parked a block away and walked, cap pulled low over my eyes. They didn't even check if anyone was watching. Just strolled into the lobby like it was a Sunday brunch date. I stood across the street behind a row of parked cars, heart pounding. 5 minutes later, the lights in room 214 flickered on. I watched. And I waited. It took everything I had not to storm up there. To kick down the door, drag her out, demand explanations. But some part of me, the cold, rational part that hadn't been completely shattered, whispered. Get proof. Without proof, I had nothing but my own broken heart. With proof, I'd have leverage. I'd have control. And I wasn't about to hand her my heart and my future on a silver platter. The next day, I found a private investigator. Name was Mike. Retired sheriff's deputy. Broad shoulders, buzz cut, firm handshake. You sure about this? He asked, flipping open a notepad. I nodded once. No hesitation. Not anymore. He set up GPS trackers under her car, installed a tiny recording device in the underside of her driver's seat, legal, because it was community property. He even taught me how to clone her phone messages to my laptop. All with quiet professionalism, like he was fixing a broken transmission. I felt dirty. Violating her privacy. But then I thought about that laugh she gave Bryce. The way she tilted her head. The way she used to tilt it at me. And suddenly, I didn't feel guilty at all. The evidence came in fast. Photos. Credit card records for seedy motels, overpriced dinners. Texts copied from her phone. Can't wait to see you tonight, winking face. Miss your hands on me. He has no clue. I almost feel bad, almost. Every word another punch to the gut. One night, Mike handed me a small manila folder over black coffee at a diner. Inside, a set of glossy photographs. Rachel, wrapped around Bryce like a lifeline, outside room 214. Laughing. Kissing. Hands everywhere they shouldn't be. When I got home that night, Rachel was sitting on the couch, scrolling on her phone, acting like nothing was wrong. How was your day? She asked casually. I stared at her for a long time. At the woman I thought I knew. The woman who had once promised to stand by me no matter what. And I smiled. Not because I was happy. But because I finally knew the truth. And it was my turn now. I didn't plan it. Not really. Somewhere deep down, I guess I always imagined I'd catch them red-handed, face to face. But when the chance came, it felt less like a choice and more like gravity pulling me forward. It was a Friday. Rachel had kissed me goodbye that morning, quick, distracted, and told me she had a team-building dinner after work. Right. At 6:37 p.m., her car's tracker pinged the comfort in 2 towns over. Room 214 again. Like clockwork. Mike had set it up perfectly. Copies of the texts, printed timestamps, credit card charges, all neatly arranged in a slim folder tucked under my arm as I drove. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel sadness. I felt calm. Cold. Like I had stepped out of my own body and was watching someone else live this moment. The motel parking lot was half empty. The neon sign buzzed overhead in the humid evening air. I walked straight into the front desk. Room 214, I said, sliding a $50 across the counter. The clerk barely looked up, just pushed a second key card toward me. I stood outside the door for a long second. Listening. Muffled laughter. Rachel's laugh. Higher pitched than usual, a little nervous. Something crashed, maybe a lamp knocked over in the heat of the moment. Perfect. I slid the card through the lock. Green light. Door opened with a soft click. They didn't notice me at first. Rachel was on the bed, tangled in the sheets, Bryce leaning over her, his shirt halfway unbuttoned. Both of them laughing like giddy teenagers. Then Bryce saw me. His whole body jerked back like he'd been shot. Rachel followed his gaze, and her face drained of every bit of color. "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly, stepping inside and closing the door behind me. Dead silence. Just the humming of the cheap motel air conditioner. Rachel scrambled, pulling the sheet around herself like it could hide the truth already laid bare. Jake, what are you?" she stammered. "Save it," I said, voice low. "I'm not here to argue." I dropped the folder onto the little table with a heavy thud. Photos spilled out across the cheap laminate. Photos of them, parking lot embraces, motel door kisses, text message printouts in bold, damning black and white. Bryce cursed under his breath, running a hand through his hair. Rachel just stared at the evidence like it was a live grenade. "You want to talk, Ratch?" I said, my voice starting to shake despite myself. "Let's talk." Her lips trembled. "Jake, please. I can explain." I laughed, short, humorless. "Explain." "Sure. I'm all ears." She opened her mouth, closed it. Nothing came out. Bryce shifted on the bed, muttering, "Man, maybe I should just." "Sit your ass down," I snapped, and he did. I turned back to Rachel. "How long?" 2 words. That's all I asked. Tears filled her eyes instantly. 6 months, she whispered. 6 months of lies. 6 months of betrayal. 6 months where I slept beside her and never knew I was already alone. "You know," I said, pacing the worn carpet, "I thought it would feel worse. Seeing it. But honestly." I turned to her, to both of them. "I feel free." Rachel gasped, a tiny sound. "You don't love him," I said flatly. "You just love that he makes you feel wanted. Special. Like you're not just another suburban wife with a mortgage and a Costco membership." Bryce scowled, but I didn't even look at him. "This wasn't love," I said. "It was cheap. Disposable. Like everything you two think is fun." Rachel sobbed quietly behind the sheet. Bryce sat frozen, looking like he wanted to crawl into the floor. "Good." I walked over to the little table, opened my bag, and pulled out a second folder, this one thicker. "Legal documents. You're going to be served officially Monday morning," I said. "Divorce papers. Full petition filed. I'm not fighting you in public. You want your freedom so badly. Congratulations. You've got it." I threw a business card down next to the folder. "My attorney's number. Everything's already in motion." Rachel reached out, trembling. "Jake, please, we can fix this. We can go to therapy." "Stop," I said, raising a hand. "Don't insult me with that. I stared at her a moment longer, at the woman I once thought I'd die beside. And then I walked to the door, pausing only once to look over my shoulder. "You broke it," I said quietly. "And some things stay broken." The door clicked softly shut behind me. The humid night air wrapped around me like a blanket. I felt the weight lifting off my chest, the crushing weight of trying to pretend. For the first time in a long time, I breathed. A real breath. And somewhere deep inside me, a small flame flickered to life. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning. Walking out of that motel was like stepping onto a battlefield. No more confusion. No more second-guessing myself. Now it was about one thing, winning. The following Monday morning, Rachel was served. I made sure it was clean. Professional. No public scene, no screaming. Just a plain manila envelope handed to her at the front desk of her precious office. In full view of her coworkers. It wasn't about humiliation. It was about clarity. She made her choices. Now she could live with them. Lisa, the attorney Mike had recommended, turned out to be sharper than a scalpel. First meeting, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Jake, you've got all the leverage. We're not playing defense. We're dictating terms." That's when I knew I had chosen the right person. We filed for divorce citing adultery, backed by piles of evidence, photos, texts, location data. In our state, that mattered. In a world obsessed with no-fault divorces, we still had old-school judges who frowned hard on homewreckers. Especially ones who thought they could have it all and still come out clean. Lisa outlined the strategy over black coffee and neatly printed spreadsheets. Full custody push, Rachel's documented behavior made her look irresponsible and reckless. Primary residence, would keep the house for the kids' stability. Financial division, I had proof that marital assets were used for her affair expenses. Hotels, dinners, gifts. That would come out of her share. Spousal support? Not a chance. Rachel was fully employable. Plus, her little hotel escapades weren't exactly good optics for begging the court. And the kicker? Lisa planned to subpoena Bryce if needed. Drag him into court. Put him under oath. Make them both squirm if they tried to fight it. Meanwhile, at home, Rachel tried playing the old hand. Tears. Begging. Sudden gourmet dinners waiting when I got home. "You don't have to do this," she whispered one night, standing in the kitchen doorway, still wearing my old college hoodie like it meant something anymore. I just stared at her. "I already did," I said simply, brushing past her. Every polite silence. Every locked door bedroom night. Every empty seat across from her at dinner. It was all intentional. Psychological warfare. She had shattered our bond. Now she was going to feel what life without it looked like. A week after the papers hit her desk, Rachel made her move. She showed up with an apology letter. 6 pages, handwritten. It wasn't just about regret. It was panic. Hidden between the flowery sentences was what she was really saying. Please don't take the house. Don't take the kids. Don't make this public. It was all about her losses, not my pain. Typical. I gave the letter to Lisa without reading past the first paragraph. If she tries to settle? I asked. Lisa smiled thinly. We'll listen. But on our terms. Mike called a few days later too. I thought you should know, he said, his voice low. Bryce cleaned out his apartment. Word around is he's skipping town. Coward. Perfect. His disappearance only made Rachel look even worse, abandoned by the guy she blew up her life for. Meanwhile, my kids. They noticed things were changing, but I kept it stable. Homework done. Dinners made. Weekend soccer games attended, cheering loud from the sidelines. I wasn't about to let my children feel like pawns in a war they didn't start. The house stayed clean, safe, normal. While Rachel's life quietly unraveled piece by piece. One night, after a particularly brutal negotiation session where Lisa shredded Rachel's attorney like a paper shredder, I sat outside on the back porch. Stars overhead. Cold beer in my hand. The sound of my kids laughing upstairs. I realized something. This wasn't revenge. This was justice. A slow, methodical reclaiming of my life, without yelling, without breaking a sweat. Just calm, unstoppable forward motion. And the best part? The war wasn't over yet. The best moves were still ahead. If you think betrayal has a rock bottom, you're wrong. It's a bottomless pit. And I was about to find out just how deep Rachel and Bryce had dug it. It started with a strange email. Mike had been monitoring some old accounts linked to Rachel, an old Gmail she'd used for online shopping, travel bookings, that sort of thing. Buried inside was a forwarded thread. A conversation between Rachel and Bryce. Planning things. Not just meetups. Not just motel room sins. They were planning to move money. My money. It hit me like a gut punch. Over the past year, Rachel had been slowly funneling small amounts out of our joint savings account into a business venture account she opened without my knowledge. At first, tiny amounts. $400 here. $800 there. Amounts small enough not to trigger my internal alarms. But they added up. And Bryce? He was coaching her. There it was, in black and white. Once it's clear, we can move forward without his dead weight. He'll be too broken to fight it. If you stall him during divorce, we keep more. I sat back in my office chair, staring at the screen, my hands trembling slightly. Not with fear. With anger. Cold, calculated anger. They hadn't just betrayed my heart. They were trying to get my future. But they had underestimated one thing. I wasn't broken. I was sharpened. I brought it all to Lisa. When she finished reading, she leaned back in her chair and gave me a look I'll never forget. A slow, almost predatory smile. "Jake," she said, voice cool, "I think it's time we turn up the heat. Here's what we did." Lisa filed an immediate injunction freezing all joint accounts. We subpoenaed all financial records tied to Rachel's secret accounts. We filed a fraud claim tied to marital asset concealment, a felony in our state. And because Bryce was actively conspiring with her, we had grounds to drag him into civil court too. Rachel was about to lose more than just her husband. She was about to lose her reputation, her savings, and any chance of public sympathy. And then fate handed me another unexpected ally. Bryce's wife. Yeah. Turns out he wasn't just cheating with my wife, he had a wife of his own. Molly. I found her through a mutual contact, and when I reached out, carefully, respectfully, she didn't hesitate. She wanted in. Badly. We met at a quiet coffee shop. Molly was younger than I expected, late 20s maybe, sharp green eyes that carried a familiar kind of pain. "I knew he was screwing around," she said, stirring her coffee so hard it splashed over the rim. "I just didn't know it was with your wife." I slid the email thread across the table. She scanned it, her face going from disbelief to fury in seconds. "Let's bury them," she said flatly. With Molly's help, the plan evolved. She provided access to Bryce's financials, travel records, secret credit cards. We built a mountain of evidence taller than Everest. And quietly, piece by piece, Lisa and I prepared the legal equivalent of a nuclear strike. Meanwhile, at home, Rachel grew increasingly desperate. The small things gave her away. The way she jumped whenever her phone buzzed. The fake smiles she plastered on like makeup. The sudden, teary, accidental run-ins at the grocery store when she knew I'd be there. She could feel it coming. But she had no idea how big the wave would be when it finally hit. The night before our next court date, I stood on the porch again, feeling the autumn wind cut across my face. Above me, the stars burned cold and steady. I wasn't the man who had begged for explanations anymore. I wasn't the man who cried into his pillow anymore. I was something harder. Sharper. Better. The final moves were set. And by tomorrow, Rachel and Bryce would finally understand what it meant to lose everything they had gambled for, and then some. The courtroom wasn't like the movies. No shouting. No dramatic slamming of fists. Just a heavy, suffocating quiet, broken only by the low murmur of attorneys and the scribble of pens on notepads. But if you knew how to look for it, you could feel it. Power shifting. Lives about to be rewritten. Rachel sat across from me at the long oak table. She looked small. Not the confident woman I had married. Not even the smug liar I had caught. Just a scared, tired woman who finally realized the world was no longer hers to control. Bryce wasn't there. Of course not. Cowards rarely stick around to watch their own destruction. The judge, a no-nonsense man with iron-gray hair and a gaze that could freeze lava, called the court to order. Lisa stood, crisp and calm, like she was presenting a quarterly report, not gutting someone's life. She laid out everything. Documented adultery. Financial fraud. Asset concealment. Conspiracy with a third party. She presented the subpoenaed bank statements, the email threads, the motel receipts, the surveillance photos. Piece by piece, brick by brick, she built the case like a fortress no one could knock down. Rachel's lawyer tried. Oh, he tried. He made weak arguments about emotional distress and temporary lapses of judgment. He even tried to paint me as controlling, because I had monitored Rachel's activities after suspecting her. The judge cut that off so fast it left scorch marks on the table. You monitored your property, during a period of documented marital misconduct, he said, voice cold. That's called protecting your interests, not harassment. I could almost hear Rachel's heart breaking right there in that chair. When the financials came up, Lisa smiled that thin smile again. She explained how Rachel had tried to hide joint marital assets, a felony in our state. The judge leaned forward, hands clasped. Ms. Carter, he said sternly, are you prepared to face criminal charges for financial fraud? Rachel broke. Right there in the courtroom, she cracked like cheap glass. Tears streamed down her face. She shook her head violently. Mumbled something about not meaning to, and being confused. The judge didn't care. He didn't even blink. Final rulings. Primary custody of the children, awarded to me. House, awarded to me. Savings and retirement accounts, 80% to me. Her attempts to hide money destroyed any chance of an even split. Spousal support, denied entirely. Child support, Rachel ordered to pay a significant monthly amount based on her income. The judge issued a stern warning. If she missed even one payment, immediate wage garnishment would follow. And on top of that, the judge allowed Lisa to file for restitution, a civil claim for damages caused by her fraudulent financial activity. Meaning she now owed me even more. Rachel sobbed openly as the verdicts were read. Her lawyer patted her back awkwardly, as if he regretted ever taking her case. I didn't gloat. Didn't smirk. I sat there, still and steady, watching the justice system do exactly what it was designed to do. And when it was over, I simply stood, nodded once to Lisa, and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. Outside, the air felt sharper. Crisper. Molly, Bryce's soon-to-be ex, was waiting for me on the courthouse steps. She flashed a small, fierce smile. Round one, she said. I smiled back. Round one, I agreed. Bryce's legal problems were just beginning. Molly had filed for divorce, citing adultery, financial betrayal, and breach of marital contracts. She planned to take him for everything he was worth, and with our shared evidence, she probably would. Last I heard, Bryce was selling his car and crashing on a buddy's couch. Poetic justice. I spent that evening with my kids. We went out for burgers and milkshakes. Watched a baseball game on TV. Laughed at stupid commercials. Life. Simple, unbroken life. It was still there. Still waiting for me on the other side of all that wreckage. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like a ghost haunting my own house. I felt alive. There were scars, sure. There always are. But scars are just proof that you survived something meant to destroy you. And now, I was free. And I was just getting started. It's strange how silence feels after a war. Not heavy. Not hollow. Just, clean. Like a field after the storm clouds finally pass, broken branches everywhere, puddles glinting in the sunlight, but the air so fresh it almost hurts to breathe. 6 months later, my life barely resembled what it had been. The divorce was finalized. Rachel had moved to a small rented apartment across town, seeing the kids every other weekend, as the court ordered. Bryce? Last I heard, he was working shifts at a second-rate sales firm, his dream of climbing the corporate ladder burned to ash. Molly, bless her fire, took him for everything she could. I never crossed paths with either of them again. By then, they were just background noise. I kept the house. Refurnished it slowly, one piece at a time. Every old photograph, every reminder of what was lost, gone. Replaced by new things. Things that belonged to this life, not the one that ended in a motel room off the interstate. My kids adjusted better than I feared. Kids are resilient that way. We had our rough patches, nights of questions I couldn't fully answer, awkward moments where the world felt too big and unfair for them to understand. But mostly, we were okay. Better than okay. We built new routines. Saturday morning pancakes. Movie nights on Fridays, curled up on the couch in a fort made of old blankets. Lazy Sunday afternoons tossing a baseball in the backyard. We healed together, one small laugh at a time. And me? I started finding pieces of myself I hadn't even realized I'd lost. I went back to the gym, not to chase vanity, but to remind myself what strength felt like. Took long drives with no destination, just good music and open highways. Reconnected with old friends, the real ones, the ones who showed up when the world fell apart. I found a peace I didn't think I deserved at first. But slowly, day by day, I realized. I deserved all of it. Every damn bit of it. One crisp Saturday afternoon, I took my kids to a baseball game, just the three of us. We wore matching jerseys. We ate overpriced hot dogs and laughed too much. When our team hit a home run in the bottom of the ninth, my daughter jumped up and threw her arms around my neck, screaming in joy. In that moment, with the roar of the crowd around us, her laughter in my ear, my son fist-pumping the air beside me, I knew. I hadn't just survived. I had won. Not in the courtroom. Not in the financial settlements. But in the life that was still mine to live, better, cleaner, and more honest than ever before. Later that night, when the house was quiet and the kids were asleep, I sat on the back porch with a beer in my hand. The stars were out again, clear and sharp. For a long time, I just listened to the quiet. No anger. No sadness. Just gratitude. For the lessons. For the second chances. And maybe, just maybe, for the possibility that somewhere out there, someone else was staring at the same stars, hoping for someone exactly like me to walk into their life when they least expected it. Because heartbreak doesn't get the final word. Not if you don't let it.